Bait?
Yes.
My goodness. How did this story come to fruition for you?
The story came to fruition because we'd already done Before Dawn, and the zombies in that are kind of they're allegories for the collapse of a relationship, really. And so it didn't really matter what they were monster-wise. So we were looking at other monsters and for another story that was maybe an allegory, and it was leaning towards the loan sharks and the way that was. And then the more we looked into the story of loan sharks and the more we leant towards there, we realised that the sociopathy that was involved in that and the level of violence that was being dealt out to human beings, we realised that was the monster that is the loan shark, or the certainly extreme end of the loan shark, they were treating human beings far worse than any human being should be treated, and far worse than any monster we could have invented, really. So we concentrated on 4 or 5 stories, certainly one in Cheshire, one in Sheffield, one in Poland, and one in Indonesia. Yeah.
So did you find then, as part of your research, that there were probably things that you couldn't, even though this is a horror film, you can't actually put into it because the stuff is so horrible you can't put it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there were some circumstances where you just like forced suicides and the killing of siblings in order to get the money back, and it just got ridiculous, And in the end, you have to remember that you're kind of telling a serious story, but it's a thriller, and there has to be an entertaining side to it. And you don't want to exploit the real life side of things, so we used them as a basis, and then took many liberties, and then made our own story out of what was already there, But you really can't go around.
You've got sort of 2 strong female leads in this. So, as a director and as an actor, is it interesting for you then to kind of delve into the psychology of a female, really, where you wouldn't normally get to?
I think so, yeah. Well, with Joe writing the stories, and then we always pass on to a screenwriter. I don't think we're confident enough yet to start writing the dialogue for him. And Paul Randell's just great. His dialogue crackles, and even learning lines from Paul Randell, you read it once or twice, and you go, oh yeah. It's just how people speak, It's great. Because somebody said, "Oh, is it all improvised?" And you're like, "No, it's all, it's word for word in the script, So, what was the question? Sorry.
About the female psychology, because you got 2.
So, especially with Joe, is really into European cinema, but going around different festivals last year and the year before with Before Dawn, she'd seen a lot of horror films at the festival because I was working, so Joe would have to support the film. And she just said that a lot of time, female characters in films are either very, very dumbed down, or they're kind of a sideline character. Not always, because sometimes they have a great starring role. We saw 2 films last night that were brilliant, strong female leads. But she said all too often they run in front of the screen and go, ah, like that, and then they scream and then they're dead. But also that the baddie doesn't die because they're hoping for a franchise, so there's no consequence to their actions, and you just think morally and ethically it's not really that sound, really, So it was written with that in view as well, that in mind.
And you're obviously directing and helming the project second time round.
Yeah.
What's that like for you? Is it a pleasure for you to work with your actors and see them evolve in front of your eyes?
Yeah, I like rehearsing, but I like trusting what the actors can do, and I like trying to. Because I'm an actor myself, I know actors' tricks, so they don't really get away with it. But even beforehand, I was saying, because we haven't got much time to do this, we've got 4 weeks, it's somebody else's money, we've really got to sort it out. So I said, if I say stand there, you can work out what you're saying, you can work it out psychologically what you're going. We had a psychiatrist on set, that was talking through sociopathy and victim support. So we got that right, but really I'd worked out the shots already in a book and knew that we had a slider for this, we had Steadicams for it, we had all sorts of bits, but I didn't want the actor to say, I think I'll be stood over there, because there wasn't the time, so it was great to get that done and get them agree to it. You can have this part in this film, but you do what I say, because I know what actors are like, So.
You're talking as well about the technical aspects of filmmaking, so how has that been for you, that transition of working with your director of photography, your editors? How's that process been for you creatively?
Well, it was great because with Before Dawn it was all shaky cam, handheld, and I'd had enough of that, and I didn't want it, and I never wanted that for Before Dawn anyway. It's just that money meant that we couldn't do it. I'd love to refilm it, I don't think I would, but with this, I wanted it all very considered, pre-thought out shots, and we had lots of equipment. And Jeff Boyle came along, who's been around for years and years and years, and he brought lots of equipment with him. And we had to drive to Holland one day and get an 18-foot slider that could be turned upside down at 45 degrees. All this. So it was utilising what we knew we had and trying to get. And if I said in my shot list, Jeff, I would like this shot, I'd go, I'll do that, but let's light it this way as well. So whatever we said we wanted, he'd just make it twice as good, so it was great being able to rely on somebody that knew. Because I can say I want this, but if we don't know what we're doing, that we had someone on set that knew what they were doing and could make my shot happen, which is great. I'd definitely work with him again, yeah.
So this is based on true events?
It is.
So for you as a producer and an actor, it must have been a story that you just had to tell.
Well, yes. I mean, it's an amalgamation of stories. I mean, you only have to tap into the internet to Google loan shark, debt collector, and it will come up with all sorts of stuff. And it is frightening. It's really scary. And I think because in the past year, I mean, debt's been going on since time began, hasn't it? Borrowing and lending. It's been going on biblically, But I think in the past few years, particularly with all the payday loans, every time I switched on the radio, there was always something. They were always talking something about that. And I thought, and it was just perfect. So we did actually write the script. I'd had the idea for the script a while ago, but it just seemed the right time now. And so we wrote it. Well, I wrote the story and then gave it to Paul Randell. But it is something that I think most people know about. But it's a very dark, seedy underworld.
And is it important as well then when you're putting a script together like this that you make sure that your females are not victims and make sure that they've got some gravitas?
Yeah. That's. I mean, I would never ever, make a film where it's about violence towards women. That is absolutely no way. There is violence towards women in this film, as there is violence towards men in this film. And I spoke to a friend of mine, and she quite rightly said, if it was two lead men, would that make it okay then to have violence against them? And they said, well, no, not really. That doesn't make it right. So it could have been two men in this film quite easily, but I wanted it to be two female simply because there aren't enough female roles, and I feel quite passionate that females don't have to be the victim. They can be at the beginning, but they kick ass,
And also, do you think as well, because it's based on true events and you've been able to kind of create a story around it, that then allows your imagination to go a little wild?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, there had to be a set piece at the end. I mean, it has to be that. I mean, we had so many great creative people on board, like Alex Shandon, and to name but one person out of loads. So it was really important. And then obviously Dominic, that's his area. That's much more his area than it is mine. But when he said, what can she have in that bathroom? We can't do the top of the toilet because that was done in true romance, so we knew that. So it was like, okay, well, what could she pick up? And he was thinking, what could she pick up that's going to kill him? The sink? And I know it's quite far-fetched, but a woman scorned.
It must be lovely as well then having like Dominic, who's also an actor, then turned director. You've got this collaboration because you want to contribute. He wants the contribution of everybody.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's a people's person. He's great, and he's great to work with. And he's a pain sometimes because he's my husband. So I mean, I'd be lying. You'd say I was lying, but it is. We always say that we want to work. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it together because we bounce off each other. We bounce the ideas off, and we go and hole ourselves up in a room for a couple of days and write, and write stories. So it's actually great for a marriage, I think.